It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. And so it looks like we have, what, about 90 minutes, like an hour and a half to kind of discuss. I have a number of things to kind of go through. I try to not make it as dense, but I love this subject so much. And so there's a lot of information to cover. But I have a slide for questions at the end, but to be perfectly honest, feel free to ask questions during. I know sometimes I can't wait till the end or I might forget. So for those online, just go ahead and mention we have a question in the chat, and anyone who has questions as we go through, definitely we can stop for that for sure. So as Mark said, yeah, I'm here to talk about 7 steps for a digital marketing plan. Digital marketing plan is what I do. It's my life. So let's kind of move forward here. Let's see if I can get my slides here. All right, just a little bit about my business. Again, it's a digital marketing agency. I really focus on small businesses who are understaffed and overwhelmed. That's my main focus. I've worked in a lot of different industries. So from political, from restaurant, things like that. So in terms of like niching into a certain group, I just work with a lot and have done so. I just find it interesting and challenging. So feel free to look me up. And give me some feedback on my website, because I just redid it, and and I published it late night and I was sleeping. So if you find any typos or anything, let me know, because I just kind of threw it back out there. We already talked about who I am. Yes, I worked with a lot of different brands. I came from digital marketing way back when. I remember going to Dearborn back in the 90s and talking with the board and Met Ford and letting them know that the internet's not going away. And so it's not a fad. You need to think about the different channel strategies that you want for your business and how the internet's going to work for you, Ford. I did the same thing up in Troy, talking to Kmart. If anybody remembers Kmart, and told me that the internet's not going away. And so Kmart's right into the internet space was to put a kiosk in the store for people to go and shop while they're in the store on the kiosk. It was an interesting strategy, but anyway, so I've been doing that for quite a while. And then just a quick fun fact for me, my son is 17. We have a t-shirt business online. The purpose of it is really, one, to make sure he was out of my pocket in terms of cash, but also to give him some ideas of like how to have a sustainable business and think about having a business, as a young person. And I think that is something that I think that generation is already knows that they need to have their own thing and have like multiple streams of income. So, and I love e-commerce, so kind of working that. This is for those on the phone and are on Zoom, and I could definitely share this with Mark and you share it with the list. But this is what I'm going to go through. I have the 7-step checklist. I have a handy little info chart that I can definitely send it to you guys. Feel free to let me know if you would like a copy of that. Here's the bit.ly link that you can grab that. But you can print this out and put it up on your bulletin board, but I'm going to go through this list. And so this is a nice little summary sheet. So if you need that, just let me know. You can always reach out to me and I'm happy to send that along. So we're going to go through it. So we're going to start with number 1. And what I'm going to do is seven steps or 7 things to think about. I'm going to go through half of them, and then I'm going to do a little commercial break, and we're going to talk about trends and things like that. And I'm going to go through the other. So hopefully we'll be able to get through in the next 90 minutes. But when it comes to a digital marketing plan and strategy, I want to talk first about digital marketing plan. Actually, it's marketing plan. There is just a digital component to it. Being in a space, I was always known as like the digital gal, the e-commerce girl, because when businesses started to bring in digital aspects, they didn't have a place for it. My boss was the CIO at one time. My boss was the CEO. My boss was the CMO. It was in the tech department in one company. I was in the marketing department in another company. I was in sales in another company. So they didn't really know where digital fit. But now, and it's pretty much pervasive through all organizations. And because of what happened in the pandemic, which is something I remember thinking about in the early 2000s as a digital gal, where I would have to educate and explain moving things through. I remember saying to myself, I said, I wish the world would just have to go online all the time. That way I don't have to explain everything, and they would have to just embrace it. And exactly, this is kind of what happened when the world stopped last year, and people had to go online to embrace it. And small businesses had to do that too, and really to survive. And it continues to happen. So the idea that people are using digital, it's important, using those mediums, those channels in the space. So let's go through the plan in terms of what you need to do first. The first thing is definitely reviewing your offerings. So when you're looking and you're planning, I like to, you can do the annual plan where you're thinking about it for the whole year. I like to break it up into 90-day plans, but review what's worked best for your business, your company, whether the products or services within a given time frame, let's say 90 days. What performed best if you do have multiple products? And you want to take a look at it because those could be the ones that you want to continue to do. And what's not working. And sometimes those are the ones that maybe it worked the best, but that might not be the product or services that you really want to focus on. So you have to kind of take a look at that, and maybe that's not part of the plan. And make some changes to it, or come to the reality of like, all right, this is what people want from my business. And then what's not working, and that's more important. It could be that baby that you love, but that might be something that you want to reconsider, table it, put it on the side because it's not working. So definitely review your offerings is the first thing you want to do. The second thing is like looking at your offerings. You also want to know your target audience. This is so critical when it comes to your product, your service. Who are your customers? And in digital marketing, knowing that to a degree helps you because that's going to help with targeting and different campaigns for the digital marketing standpoint. Demographics is a start. So you have those typical, my customers between the ages of 35 and 55, and she's female, and she owns a home. Those are definitely your intro target. But then you really want to and find out a lot about them, interests and affinities. You want to know everything she loves. You want to know down to the business subscriptions and the magazine subscriptions that she may have had in the past. Is she a house beautiful person, or is she a home and garden? You want to get to the point where you want to know her affinities or her interests. You also want to know about her past purchases. If she's a customer of yours in the past, what did she first purchase in the past? And understanding the intent in the marketplace, who she is or who he is. You really want to find out a lot of information about that customer. The best way to do it is actually surveying your customer and doing a deep dive survey, research, right? Go ahead.
I did a survey to my customers, and the thing is, they read the cover letter, but they didn't go on the survey. And it's only like there's 5 questions. I think I got like 29 looked at it, and I sent out like over 100. Mm-hmm. And these were leads and customers. And we did it 3 times because we felt maybe it didn't go through. And I did contact people. I've been calling them just to see if they received the email. And what I might do is I might do the survey in person and just ask them 5 questions.
You could definitely do that and call them. Also incentives. I'm not sure if you have an incentive.
I did have an incentive, yeah. And I was shocked. I really was, but it's okay.
Yeah, there's some investment to that. And then there's ways to just, ask the questions, whether it's in the survey or just polling folks. If you do have social media, just kind of ask questions for folks out there as well to try to get to this target. But right now, people, if it's a survey, it needs to be right, super simple. And if it's not, raise the incentive. Like right now I'm in the process of Google reached out to me to do some research. And I'm like, oh, it's a survey, but they're offering $100 for 30 minutes. So it's like, okay, I use Google, and I know I can, my marketing brain, I know I can help them in terms of what they want to do from a Google Ads standpoint. So the incentives do matter, and especially in the digital space, because we're being bombarded, like 2,000 to 3,000 content messages a day. knowing who your customer is and then targeting them, or then segmenting them as well. For my business, I have a digital agency, and yes, I'm across a number of different industries, but I already know I have about 8 or 9 different personas that I look at from a small business standpoint. And most of my clients, we usually start with about 2 or 3, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about 6 or 7 different targets that they need to really funnel specific messages to, especially when it comes to the digital space. And a lot of it just depends on the demographics and the interests in their affinities. But when you can get to that level, it helps. I have a client who sells beautiful collectibles, and one of her collectibles was an animal, and so I knew that she needed to target dog lovers, but not just any dog lovers, small dog lovers. So it's just how to create that type of understanding of your customers. So remember, this probably is one of the more critical ones, especially when you start doing campaigns, ad campaigns. Goals, right? So on the checklist, you got to have your goals. We need to know what we're trying to do. And I always say when it comes to goals, shorten the time frame. Think about them from a perspective of, I call it now, near, and far. So what do you need to do now? Which is like, now to me is like in the next 30 days. Near, is in the next 90 days, like 6 months. And far is like 6 months and beyond. I think probably 5 years ago, I would have said now would have been 12 months, and near would have been 3 to 5, far would have been 20 years. But it's totally changed now, especially when it comes to businesses and tactics, especially from a marketing standpoint, because it changes every day. So there's different tactics that, and digital changes all the time. And then when you get reliant on certain platforms, they change. And we can talk all about what Facebook is doing, what Apple was doing, what Google is doing. And so you really need to shorten those timeframes and really kind of focus in on what do you want to do now, and the tactics for now versus the tactics for near and far. So those are the first 3. So take a little commercial break from here. I don't know if there's any questions. Yeah, okay. Any other questions about those? We're going to talk a little bit more about trends this year. So we're going to go through some trends. And if you want to follow me, I've been talking about these trends in my social media. But these are some things that will definitely impact your business. We're already in April. I don't know about you. Is anybody thinking this year is moving really fast?
Yeah. Oh
faster than, last year, it was kind of a slog in the summer a little bit, but this year's is really moving back. So we're already in Q2, right? Some digital trends that you guys need to think about. Obviously, digital marketing. So if you have businesses that are not in digital marketing, and trust me, every business, just about every business needs to have a digital component, whether it is a digital, your digital ad, or not ad, but your presence where people can find you in the digital space, so in the Google directory, Google My Business, you need to have some sort of digital elements. Email, that's considered digital marketing. So if you are a business and you're not working in that capacity, you're going to need to, because one, your vendors will be doing it, and your customers will be demanding it. So that needs to continue. So those who kind of morphed and moved and did some things based on last year, it's to kind of continue those. I always say foster first-party relationships. And what I mean by that is your first party, your customers. Your customer list, or the people who raised their hand and they gave you the name, those are the first-party relationships that you have to foster. You have to do it now because a lot of the platforms are getting away from third-party relationships because of privacy issues. And you're finding that we as customers want to protect our privacy. So platforms like Google and Facebook are moving away from what I call the third-party relationships, where they know you based on IP or cookie, and they'll introduce you to information from that perspective. Right now, it has to be first party. And it's okay for a Google or Facebook to know that, because they know enough of data. They've been around for 10 years, so they really know the data. It's a little scary, but yeah, the data's out there. Everybody knows about you. I tell people who are really privacy junkies, who really are really close. I'm like, if you're on the internet, people know you. You're gonna have to totally get off the grid. My dear roommate, she's trying to get off the grid all the time. But my old roommate from college. But I keep telling her, I says, well, you know, if you have banking or anything like that, your stuff is out there. You put it out there, it's gonna be out there. But first party relationships are most important. Virtual events and the savviness of it, those are must-haves. Obviously, this is a great example of it. This is an in-person event as well as online. I know I highly recommend, and I see this happening a lot, is these hybrid events where you're going to have your event in person, where you're happy to be back in person, but there's going to be, or there should be, some hybrid component to it because people are getting used to it. I know those folks on the phone who are cozy at home, I'm sure that if you're going to an event such as this, or if there's an event that offers this type of option, it's kind of nice to, like, on a winter day to just cozy up to Zoom. I know a lot of us are Zoomed out, and you're gonna find other tools like this one. I love Hopin. Hopin's been around forever. I shouldn't say forever. It's been around for a while. The guy who created it developed it because he was housebound and he needed to create an event tool for himself that really helped him feel like he was in the room. And so Hopin has some elements to it. One is it's super simple to use, but it can kind of create that event where people are sitting at tables and you can have a panel discussion, and it kind of it's a little bit more intuitive when it comes to panel discussions versus like a Zoom framework. So for those who are having conferences in person, Hopin is a good tool. There's other conference tools, but I highly recommend. I love Hopin.
Excuse me, to get into Hopin, you just go to their website, just Hopin.
Yeah, and then they have like a pricing structure to it as well. But yeah, you can go to their website and it'll let you know, like, if you have a conference for so many people and what it offers.
Good question. How do they get into Hopin? Is it the same way they do with Zoom?
Pretty much, yeah. You just send a link to somebody and then they come in it. So you don't have to necessarily download a software to your computer. Okay. It's kind of all in the cloud. So it's good. Social media platforms will definitely become more e-commerce. I think we kind of know a lot of that from Facebook, but it's more than just discovery. What I mean by discovery is like people just know your business is out there, but they don't plan to transact. But right now on Facebook and Instagram, transactions are happening. So that's going to continue to happen because getting to a conversation we were having earlier about ADHD, if you want something now, you better do it now because you're going to be distracted and go to something else. So if you're going to buy something, in that impulse is to buy. You want to be able to shorten that buying process. Another thing to think about from a trend is that businesses need to communicate their stance. And what I mean by that is their stance and their brand values. In the past, some of this stuff was kind of buried in an annual report of like their mission and their vision. But right now, CEOs and business owners need to express themselves. And these are something that was taboo in the past, right? You don't talk about religions or taxes or finances, from a business perspective. Right now, in our climate, you have to. So your stance is very important, not only just from a media standpoint, but certain generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs, which are like the 18 or the 20 and unders, they demand that. They want to do business with people with it, but they need to know who you are and your stance and how authentic you are. So businesses should just talk about that and where they stand because it leads to brand values and authenticity. Obviously, customers first, right? Customers, knowing the pain points of those customers and making sure that you're intimately aware of their pain and you're trying to address that in particular. So that customer first mentality is even more important in 2021 and just in your business. And that also means that your marketing and your sales need to align. Small businesses, marketing, sales are kind of like commingling together a little bit, but they're distinctly different. Marketing is getting people into the room. Sales is getting people to give you the money. So those are two different skill sets that are needed. And so from a small business standpoint, I have to be aware of that, especially when it comes to who you hire and who you need to run your business, and understanding what the conversion means in converting that, and then what marketing does. Is there something in here? Okay, I'll just keep moving on. Yeah, Mark.
There was a question in the chat. What do you consider a small business?
Small business. I consider small business 10 million or less. That's kind of a small business. In terms of resources, to me, small is 500 or less in terms of employees. That's I would consider that small. That's me. That's me. And I know there's probably government defined definition of small business, but for businesses that I tend to talk to, that to me is yep.
And one other from Steve on time frames. Noticed in the last several years a much shorter time frame for people to respond to an event. Now usually a few days before the event, yep, instead of weeks or months in the past. Does this look like the new norm? That's going to be the new norm, especially from an online standpoint, right? Because you don't have to worry about travel or getting, so people are going to respond day up. I'm not sure if anybody registered today for this event or did yesterday, but that definitely is going to be the norm for online events, and then those local events like here in the Metro Detroit area. People are going to wait until the very last time they can do that. And a lot of it has to do with just, they may have put a mental reminder, but they need to look at their calendar and see what's happening. So yeah, it's going to continue to happen. I tell my clients, especially when it comes to promoting events, depending on the size of the event, like for example, Detroit does a wonderful event before last year, the Detroit Startup Week. It's downtown. The event was usually around the same time as the auto show. But this last year, they did it in June. But then again, because of COVID, it kind of changed up. And the auto show didn't happen. So, but prepping for that event and getting people to be aware of that event, maybe that's like 2-3 months just to put on the list because it's a week-long type of thing. But then you just really start to ramp up as you get closer to the date for a week-long type of conference. Conferences that have been around for a minute, you could do some prep work as people are planning and traveling. But for an in-person or local type of event, just be expected to see that people are going to wait to the last minute. It's a challenge, especially for catering, because you have to make sure you're covering off. So you just have to remind yourself that you're going to get a trickle in of registrants. I mentioned before here, creating an online community or space. I think this is more prevalent now. All the extroverts who have been struggling during the pandemic, went online and create just to be part of a community, and finding spaces for that, whether it's Facebook groups. YouTube now has a community feature, so creating your own community within YouTube. Clubhouse, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Clubhouse. Clubhouse is it's an iOS only tool, but it's sort of like a audio only networking type of tool where you can go in and you can enter into different rooms and you can be a part of the conversation and present yourself. I'm not on Clubhouse. You guys are on it. I don't know if you can explain even better than that. Since I'm an Android girl, I just it's not there.
Like a group podcast, Jane.
Yes, yeah, group. That's a good way. It's a group podcast, and it's taken off a lot this past year, to the point where you, of course, Facebook has come out with their own, Twitter has come out with their own, and it's like a group podcast, and it's only audio, so you don't have to worry about what you look like, but you're finding some influencers who are heavily involved. Like you go and you sit and be in the same room with Elon Musk, at least on you know, in a virtual standpoint. So that's kind of Clubhouse. I put here Discord. If anybody is familiar with Discord, usually that's the people who are gamers. They know.
Yeah, gamers love Discord.
Discord is Clubhouse, but more. It's the same thing. It does audio group podcasts as well as videos. It's a community. It's a tight community. And I'm always interested in people who are familiar with Discord. I think I put a comment in a Facebook group. It was like, everybody who's really interested in Clubhouse and really think this is fascinating. Discord does exactly the same thing. However, and much more. But from a marketer standpoint, I'm looking at the marketing and how it's done. Discord is open to anything and everybody. Clubhouse has this exclusivity attached to it, where you gotta have iOS phone for it to be able to do it. It has this lure of mysteriousness to it, and I think that's just, to me, good marketing, and that's why they've taken off. But these communities, these online spaces, are here to stay, because people are meeting folks from all around the world that they may never meet in person, but find these communities that are part of your tribe. And as these tools become more and more sophisticated, those are some things to kind of think about, especially when it comes to the event space, or just even with your local space. So that's a trend to make sure you consider. And then lastly, when we talk about like the geeky things, I am a Trekkie. I love Star Trek as well. AI, machine learning is taking over when it comes to marketing. So the marketing that we have done online, especially in advertising, we in the past would have to do a lot of different types of tests, and the run up to like how much that campaign was successful would take a while. But now, because of machine learning, that's kind of replacing some of the A/B testing that we would do as marketers. And what I mean by A/B testing would be like, I want to test maybe a different piece of creative versus another creative to see what resonates well with folks. A good example is Facebook now is like, I still do my creative testing because we want to find out what resonates well. But Facebook has a way of just doing it dynamically, where you just kind of throw things in there, and you don't have to set up these very specific A/B tests with the control group and things like that. So machine learning is kind of taking some of that out of the way, and the implications of that for business is you can get more insights and more results in a faster way. So you can find out more information about how are your marketing efforts doing for you faster than in the past. Any other questions online? Any more questions? Okay. Time-wise, we're doing pretty good. So let's continue on with our steps here. Oops. There we go. All right, so we went through steps 1 through 3, which was reviewing your products, making sure you understand your products, understand your audience, and knowing and making sure you identify your goals. All right, so your goals are going to have to be attached to what I call the key performance indicators. And key performance indicators, are, as you notice here, these are just a sample of some of those key performance indicators that will help determine how well your business is going to do. You notice sales is not up here, and I did that on purpose because these are indicators. So these will give you insights. You're going to get these earlier in the whole marketing journey process to determine whether or not you're going to get the sales on the other end. So if, for example, if you don't have traffic walking in your store or coming to your website, more likely it'll be hard to come get sales. So you can kind of think of these as different type of metrics that you want to look at in a dashboard, on a regular basis to see how well your business is doing. Average order size, if you are e-commerce, or if you're basically your order, and if that can fluctuate, that has a huge impact on your sales. If your average order size goes up by 10%, that just has a huge exponent factor from a sales revenue standpoint. Conversion rates are big. I have found that, when I've worked with clients, and say I'm doing some interesting marketing with them, I'm driving driving people to their website. You know, people are coming and they're looking around, they're kicking the tires, but the conversion rate is like low. And you know, the conversion rate under 2% is fairly low. And so it's like, all right, what's happening? Why? They're coming there, they're kicking the tires, they're looking at things, but they're not converting. 9 times out of 10, it's usually something within the website, whether it is the buying process is a little too clunky, or the pages are a little disruptive, or there's too much going off into other sites, because that really takes people out of that buyer's journey. And so your conversion rate is a metric to kind of think about. Downloads, your community, the size of your community. I put here partnerships, because partnerships are like your allies, your vendor, your relationships with, whether it is an influencer or it is a collaboration with another business. Those, you know, those could help your business out greatly. And that could be an indicator whether you have multiple collaborations or just a few. So those to me are some performance indicators. If people want to collaborate with you, that says something. That says either, you know, you have a community that they want to get into, a network that they want to be a part of, or they know associating themselves with your brand raises the value for both. So that's where partnerships kind of come in. Appointments, you know, if you have a business where you're taking in appointments and doing discovery calls, the number that you have during the week is, you know, it could be important. And email lists, you know, email list is critical. Making sure that you keep growing and having that healthy list. So these are some of the key performance indicators. I'm sure there could be some others depending on the businesses that you have. But these are some of the big ones. Leads, another big one. Once you've understood your key performance indicators, and that's going to definitely lead to like, all right, I need to work on traffic. Now you want to talk about your channels. What are determining the best channels for your business? There's so many things you can do. This is where I think a lot of businesses just get overwhelmed with everything that's out there. Everything is like a nice shiny penny. Everything looks cool, right? Everything you want to try. And this is where the art of saying no and telling yourself, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll just put that, you know, later. It requires, you know, a little bit of restraint because there's so many things that you can kind of do. You can do it. Obviously, social media, paid search, paid advertising, email. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, but you want to determine the best channels. So how do you determine the best channels? Well, the first thing is like, where are your customers? So making sure you know where your customers are. You know, what are those channels? I have some clients who tell me, you know, like, should I be on Pinterest or should I be on TikTok? TikTok's big. TikTok blew up last year. And I'm like, okay, are your customers there? Maybe, maybe not. Then that kind of will help determine that, right? So let's say example, I have a client who Pinterest, you know, they have beautiful materials, so beautiful products. So the Pinterest view, because it is very visual, it will work well for them. Pinterest. I tell businesses Twitter. To be on Twitter, Twitter is one of the older platforms, but Twitter is the media platform. So if your business is reliant on media and PR and public relations, Twitter would be a good avenue to at least be present on Twitter. And then, you know, you have your Facebook, you have your Instagram. I'm just using the social media platforms as an example. But you don't need to be on all of them. I tell people, you know, go to the one that you, as a business owner, use the most, because that's the one you're most familiar with, and the one where you think your customers are. And start there and perfect that.
I have a question about Pinterest. I signed up for Pinterest, but I really don't know how that works. And how does that work? Just briefly, just tell me.
What Pinterest is, you pin posts. Pinterest is like a visual, just imagine it's a visual Instagram, but as opposed to just seeing it in one feed, you see it sort of a beautiful collage of light information. So, and what people use Pinterest for is an aspiration and inspiration. So you can use Pinterest either from a home decorating standpoint, you can use Pinterest for cooking, for education. It's 95% women on Pinterest, but the 5% men, that group is definitely growing because they're looking at it from like tech and things like they want, and they want to kind of visualize and see what from a technology standpoint, from home improvement standpoint. So that group is growing. It has a very loyal, strong following on Pinterest. I'm trying to remember one of the last stats I saw. This definitely was before 2020, probably like 2018, 2019. About 300 million people are on Pinterest. So it's a loyal group in terms of Pinterest. What I would say about Pinterest from a advertising standpoint and marketing, it's pretty. It's less expensive than Facebook. You do get more information back from Pinterest because of the closed nature of it. So you can get more information from your particular customer if you do advertise there, and that can inform what you want to do from a product standpoint.
I do have to say, looking at this screen, inside it's like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to do all that?
No, you know what? I know. I wanted to kind of show all the channels, but I'm like, no. When I put together plans for my clients, I keep it simple. I'm like, one, you can't be overwhelmed, and if it's a small business and you have a small team, there's only so much you can do. So I'm all for like, go for your best. Focus on your core competency and your best. I know some people want to try new things because it's shiny and it's new and it looks great, but if you have this time, you can test out some of those things. But honestly, driving your plan and driving your business, you want to focus on things. It could be this year, I am going to focus on SEO and paid search. I'm going to do that for the first half of the year. And then maybe once I get that going and my organic side of my business is solid, then I might want to look at doing some advertising, or vice versa. My SEO is crap now. Should I focus on that now? That's a long run. It's going to take a minute to kind of get that going. So if you want to get to the top of the page, do a paid ad. That'll get you to the top of the page. So think about what makes sense for those goals that you identified. But not everything needs to happen. For example, blogs are a very interesting thing. Blogs were very, very big, and it's kind of morphed and changed right now. I think most businesses, the idea that like, all right, if you want to start blogs, you have to write 15 articles a month minimum. I don't think folks are looking at it that way as they did in the past. And now people aren't reading as much, and so video is becoming more important. So when people ask me, should I start a blog? I always say, you really should just start a YouTube channel or start doing a regular video series. That's what people are saying. That's what people want. So we kind of go from there. But you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do the YouTube channel. You don't want to. But I think you just really need to determine those best channels for where your customers are.
Is there a special way of getting people to view your YouTube channel?
There are techniques. Yeah, there are techniques.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always tell people, content is king. Content is queen. Context is queen. Because there's content, but the context of the content is most as important. But content is everything. People are, like I said, we're bombarded with 2,000 messages plus a day. But what people value in a digital space is the content. And the content has to be of value to them and makes them want to come back for more or sign up for more. So there is a lot that you may have to kind of provide to them, where you may have thought that in the past this is something that you want to sell to them. And it's like, well, no, you need to provide that to them and then have them come back for more. Thank you. So we talked about the channels. Now let's get into executing on the tactics. So we talked about the channels you need to have in place. Your goals. There's a lot of tactics that you can run through, and that's kind of the majority of the plan is the exact tactics that will meet this strategy. To keep it all together, I always look at it from understanding the funnel, and this is just an example of what this funnel could look like, and try to make sure everything flows through the funnel. So you're not doing a tactic where you cannot boil it back to a goal or roll it back up to a key performance indicator You can't assign it an audience, but then you don't know where it goes in the funnel. So you need to understand where it sits in the funnel and what makes sense for you and your business, depending on where you are with your business. If you're a brand new business starting out, and you started in 2020, you just got up and going. Obviously, you're going to be at the top of the funnel because you need people to understand who you are. If you are a business that's been around for a while, you're going to be at the bottom of the funnel. A good example is like Ford. Ford Motor Company, right? Everybody's heard of Ford. So bringing out the awareness is not as important for Ford because people know Ford. So they do some things, they do sponsorships, they try to make sure that they're kind of a little top of mind. They do a few awareness campaigns. But the big piece for them is the loyalty and advocacy. It's their customer base and how many people repeat and come back. I look at this funnel, it seems like it's like a linear thing, but actually it's a circular thing, but that's hard to really visualize because you go through these cycles as a customer. If you think of yourself as a customer, going through the journey to buying, it's really hard to do it in a linear fashion anymore. When it comes to digital, you could be thinking about buying a new car or thinking about insurance. I need to be aware of what insurance I need to have, but then you bounce down to loyalty, and so you kind of go through the cycle. But understanding this funnel helps you understand how you can execute your tactics, right? So if you are a business that has a new product or new service, you gotta increase the awareness. So awareness is probably the area that you might want to focus on. However, if you're a business with a new product or new service, but you've been around for a while, do you build up your awareness of that? Are you going after different and new customers, or do you really need to look at your current customer base and start there? Some of you may have heard when it comes to like funnels, you need to have this know, like, and trust factor. You've heard that, it's like, all right, the idea, especially on social media, people need to know who you are, and that's awareness. They need to like you and then trust you where they will convert. And conversion is a number of things. Obviously, conversion is sales. That's what I think everybody wants, right? They purchase something from you. But conversion is a transaction of some sort. So conversion can be that they provided some inputs of information to you. Consideration is where they will like you. So they kind of hung around with you. They may have been to your website. They may have liked your Facebook page. They may have shared a piece of content of yours. That's kind of consideration. So they like you. They think, all right, that's an authority. It's somebody I'm interested in. They're talking about amazing stuff around wellness. I want to share that with folks. I like you. I know who your business is. And then the last piece, which people don't talk enough about, I love to talk about this, is fealty. I call it fealty. It's the loyalty, it's the advocacy piece. This is the piece where people, I think they forget how valuable this customer is and how you should really, really take your customers and nurture them and continue them as part of your community.
I have to share this. I have a nucleus of customers, and what I do is I keep specials going to them. I started doing that, and it takes a little bit of time, but you know what? I always say, if you get a customer, why not keep that customer and let them know that you appreciate them? Because in our society today, we live in an impersonal society. You get a customer and then you think, well, they're going to buy if they're going to buy. No, we have to schmooze them. We do.
Yeah, I think
it's I highly agree. That's wonderful. That one is.
Yeah, I think just the VIP tactic is something that I have used with my clients. I have some retail clients that have local stores, right? And so I tell them, I say, you should have a VIP loyalty plan for your local clients. They should have exclusivity to first dibs on products or services because they've already demonstrated their loyalty to you and they've purchased from you. If you have any new products or services going out, this is a great group to test with and find out, are they interested in getting their research that if they're interested in finding out more information from them. This is definitely the group that you want to continue to advocate towards and create loyalty around. So fealty is the area that I tend to focus on. I almost flip this funnel. especially in 2021, in 2020 for sure, because of what happened with the pandemic. I know advertising kind of came to a halt, and people stopped advertising like in March and April because they're like, whoa, what are we gonna do? And so businesses were like, what do we need to do? So the first thing I tell them to do is just talk to your current customers. Let them know what's happening to you, what's happening. We want to know what's happening with them. So having that conversation and nurturing and continuing that communication with your customers, I think is critical and becomes important, because then you just become part of their tribe, their group, and that brand. You just have filter. I mean, what did we talk about before? All you Apple folks, you know, and then us Android people. Android, yes.
You're doing both though.
I am doing both.
Wait a minute, you're like me. I do both.
Yeah, I had to do both. But when it comes to my personal phone, you know, I made the smart choice.
That's funny.
I made the smart choice. I already told you. My family, my husband and my daughter, and my son, they're all Apple, and so they always roll their eyes at me. Like, come on over. I'm like, I'm not going to the dark side. He's like, come on over. I'm like, no. And Google has been that way since the start. So, but that's that fealty, right? That you need to have. So when you execute the tactics, so basically, if you have a tactic like I mentioned before, a VIP program, that's a tactic that you're going to do. That's going to be in the lower part of the funnel. And you can create a program where you offer exclusivities, or create an email campaign that talks about that. And then you look at those metrics that are attached to that. You know, obviously, if it's an email campaign, you're looking at open rates, you're looking at click-throughs, you're looking at people who are actually giving you their email information so that you can be a part of that. And if it's a VIP, and then maybe you offer the VIP program and you offer an annual subscription or something that they give, you know, unique to them. Maybe you send them something in the mail on an annual basis because they're a part of your VIP program, just to make them feel special. It could be, you know, it's amazing. It could be a little thing, but just the fact that you took your time out to do that and mail them something physical, is something to consider. When it comes to conversion, if you want the people to convert, this is like your sales. So from an e-commerce standpoint, you want them to trust you. So a good tactic in conversion is, you can see I'm going from bottom to up, is the abandonment cart, right? And making sure that if people come into your e-commerce store or come to your website and they've gone through a few steps, but then they kind of bounced away, you know, and you're like, wait, what happened? Come back. So you have triggers that you can see that, like, all right, they just left the website. Let me send an email if I have that information and try to bring them back to that. Or let me go ahead and retarget them, knowing that they came to my website. When they're back on, whether it is Facebook or Instagram or Google, I'm going to retarget them. I'm going to send them, I'm going to present an ad to them that's specifically for that person who came to my website but didn't do anything. And so you can still now do that in terms of retargeting them and asking them questions like, what did you find this product or service to your liking? Or like, hey, here's a coupon, some other incentive that maybe can get them to come right back, whether it's like a 10% off coupon, like, hey, you were here, since you came to us for the first time, let's offer free shipping, things like that. You can kind of think about for them. This is also an area for when it comes to service businesses. You are trying to get them to set up the discovery call or walk into the store. So what it's going to take to convert them to kind of walk in. Those are the tactics that you want to kind of think about. Consideration and awareness. Awareness is really kind of getting your face out there and know who you are. Awareness, a lot of awareness in businesses, require are like sponsorships or just doing reach advertising. So you're reaching in your community. So when people are online and they're looking at things in their community, they'll see your name come up all the time. Like for State Farm, you're kind of in the community, so you're doing things around the community, and you're working with all like some of the community leaders, right? The churches, the schools, and things like that, and you're partnering and doing things to kind of create that awareness, or they know that the comfort level, because our State Farm person is here. It's funny, one of my clients, State Farm, who happened to be one of my high school buddies. You probably know him because if you're in the network, Dave Arcee.
Yeah.
So yeah, no Dave. So Madison Heights, and yes, yep. And so you know what he does. He's heavy in the community. You know, it's like I went to Royal Oak Shrine, and so Dave's kind of just been in that 2-mile radius, and he does everything in that community. You know, so but that's awareness. You know, when it comes to service business, and then consideration is just making sure they like you. You know, they come to your page, get them to subscribe, right? So tactics to increase followers or increase likes to the page. There are different methods and tactics you can do to kind of move you in that direction. You were talking about YouTube. Some of the best tactics for YouTube is really content is teasing them with content that they need to come back, or they need to have it first. Trying to create and try to marketing is all about getting them to behave a certain way. So you might want to create a sense of urgency, whether they thought they needed it or not. A good example. We were talking earlier. I told you I was such a sci-fi geek. We were talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's on Disney Plus. And the last episode is this Friday. And why is there this false urgency? Because I need to talk to people, but I'm going to have to watch it. It's almost like going back to appointment TV, right? I have to watch it. I'm going to watch by Friday because I got to stay off social media. So there's certain ways to kind of like market that. It's like, do you want to talk about what happened in the show? Then you better watch it Friday until they're forcing you to behave a certain way. And that's one of the better tactics of marketing, is to get people to behave where they wouldn't else want to. You know, it's summertime, or summer's coming up, even though there's snow outside. Women, you want to wear sandals? It's coming up. Okay, it's time to get that mani-pedi that you've been putting on all year or all season. So things like that to kind of create that behavior. And then lastly, the last step is. One is near and dear to my heart, because when it comes to digital marketing, unlike some of the other areas of marketing historically, you can measure, you can analyze, and you can optimize. You can measure what you do, and you manage what you measure. So, with those key performance indicators, you can create a nice little dashboard, and you can kind of see what's happening, from the marketing efforts that you do. So you will be able to tell yourself that, all right, I invested in this digital ad. What is my return? What did I get back from this? And that's something that you want to be able to kind of optimize and measure and see what works for you. I had a client that was doing really well. I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing so well. We made all these sales. It's great. But they and this is something that it almost infuriates me, especially when you see online, where people say that, follow my plan, I was able to make $100,000 in 10 days. That's one of my missions, is to really help people stay away from what I call these fake oil folks who talk about like, all right, you can make 6 figures in 10 days. Of course you can make 6 figures in 10 days, but it costs you 10 figures to get there. You got $100,000, but you just spent $120,000 in advertising to make that $100,000. And that's what I think people don't really look at, because it's so far removed from the conversion sale part of it. If you are working with an agency or have advertising, and they are providing you with all this data, you should be able to see that line through in terms of how is this effective? Are my marketing dollars effective? And I'm always stressing that you want to have efficiency in using your marketing dollars. One great metric that marketers use is known as return on ad spend. So what is my return on the money I'm spending? I mean, it makes sense, right? It's an ROI. It makes sense. And you want to determine that. Amazon uses it a lot. People who sell on Amazon, it's a metric that they often use. But you want to find out that, all right, for every dollar I spend on advertising, I'm getting a $3, $4, $5 revenue return. So you want to kind of try to create that understanding and look at that and look at the metrics and measure that. So you have your leading indicators. If you want to be able to get this, you want to know your traffic, you You want to know, your order size. So you put that information into a dashboard. I think it's critical to get comfortable with that as owners and business owners and CEOs. You may not necessarily want to dive into a lot of the analytics. I think you just need to know them up front and then have someone on your team give you the highlights, so you don't get overwhelmed with it. But once it's in a nice dashboard, like I had like this example here, down here. Once it's a nice dashboard, you can look that up on a weekly, day or daily or monthly basis. It just kind of gives you the pulse check as to what's happening with your business and what's happening from a marketing standpoint of your business. You could create these huge business dashboards, and marketing is a component of it. But for sure, I highly recommend that too, especially when you're talking about ops and all that everything. But looking at marketing has its own dashboards that you can have. You can kind of create, and you can pull all those resources, email, your social media efforts, your paid ads, your search efforts, all that can kind of e-commerce that can kind of live in one dashboard, so you can see what's happening. So you're not bouncing all over the place with that. I mentioned that too because if those of you who are on Facebook, you probably already got the alert that Facebook Analytics is going away. Yeah. Which
it connects with your webpage too. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little miffed about that because I'm figuring out how I'm going to start drafting that elsewhere. Yes.
So the reason why Facebook is doing that because of Apple and everybody else is saying, they can't support that anymore. Some of the information is still in your business.facebook. It's just disparate now. Okay. So it's not in a nice little handy Facebook analytics page. I happen to be one of the lucky ones because I came from corporate. I never used that tool that much. I've always pulled it out into a third party because corporate was trying to pull from various data sources. So I never really used the Facebook analytics piece, but because one, it's a free tool and it's so robust, a lot of people are struggling.
What tool are you using to create and analyze and create those reporting functions in that dashboard?
There's a couple of tools.
Okay.
I use a tool because I'm an agency analytics is a tool I use, and it pulls in and integrates with a number of different things. It's a great tool. There's obviously a price to it. Mm-hmm. And it's visually and it's easy to kind of pull things in. It's an agency tool, but it's handy. There are some other aspects of it that I don't like because there's some integrations that they may not have. Mm-hmm. Like one integration that one of my clients uses is a MailerLite, is that their email service. And MailerLite, which is a very popular email service, they don't integrate with. So it's like, so I do have to go to two sources. So if I don't get everything from an agency analytics, I create it in Google Data Studio. So I use the Google Data Studio feature that lives on top of, well, I shouldn't say live on top of, it's a part of the Google Analytics. Mm-hmm. The great thing about the data studio is that you can pull in from a lot of sources.
Almost anything.
Yeah. And just create your dashboard with that. So
and if you have a G Suite account, you get that free.
Yeah. Yep. So Data Studio is the other source. Other than that, it's Google Analytics, right? Data Studio makes it look nice and pretty and customize it a little more. Analytics, you do have it, so it's all sort of in your Google Analytics, and because it's free, and everybody uses Google Analytics, from Fortune 100 companies all the way down. It's highly customizable. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. I do offer, like I help people set up their Google Analytics or at least know what to look at when it comes to marketing, because there's so much stuff in it. And I have I do a workshop like on a couple of Sundays a month just to get the data right. Because this is the most important thing. It's like, you've got to get your data right so you can be able to answer the questions and start making the right decisions. So when you create the plan, your plan is based off of, your plan includes a strategy that's based off of your analytics and your data. So, it's critical to kind of go there. So yes, those are some of the tools.
Okay, thank you.
That I use. I think somebody online says, where can you go to create a dashboard? Data Studio for Google is something. I know I am creating templates. I create templates in the dashboard for people if they are interested in having that for their business as well. So those are the 7, and I'm gonna run through them again, but let's go through it like another little commercial break. Let's just talk about some of the strategies to grow your business. Here are some things to think about. If you haven't already, we kind of go through some different strategies. And this is pretty much close to the end of the deck. So that if you definitely have some questions, you know, we can kind of go back through some of them as well, since we do have some time, which is good. Like I mentioned before, talk to your existing customer, ask what they want. That's something that if you haven't done it lately, go out there and do it with your business. Focus on customer retention and offer them the new services. I talked about this too. You may have a customer group or segment that is, you might want to offer something through text messaging. Maybe text messaging is becoming important for them. Everybody has a phone, we all know that. And if you're interested in seeing if they open rates on text messaging is like 80%. People are looking at their text. This area is, you know, it's intimate, right? Who gives out their phone number? Right? You have to get it to, you're gonna give your phone number out because you want something of value. E-commerce is doing it, you know, to some degree, but you want something of value, so you're willing to give your phone number out to get the text messages.
You know, I wanted to say the only thing about texting is, and I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but I think you have to be very brief with texting because people just scan it and sometimes they don't understand the message that you're sending. If you're making it a little bit more in depth, if you have to do that, give them a phone call.
Yes.
Or send an email.
Yes. And if you can make it more image friendly, you know, text message.
Yeah.
Then just words, because you're right. People will read it and they may not, because you don't want to send a book in a text. You know, you want to kind of keep it to your, you know, your Twitter 140 characters or less, or send an image or a GIF, you know, or just to let people know that, you know, you're kind of thinking about them. So if you do have a business where you can gather phone numbers, that's something that it offers, just a different experience. It may not be text, it could be some other things for your customers. Just give them, you know, a different experience to keep them happy, you know, and just try some different things to just to grow your business. I know for me, you mentioned YouTube. I'm starting a YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of things with Facebook and Instagram, but as an agency, I know that YouTube is a great place to pour in my content. And part of my mission is that I'm trying to educate as well. And so it's a great place for education, right? And to educate people. So offering that up to your customers is a place to kind of go. YouTube and some other things for customers, it's good to think about to grow your business. Email, I always tell people email is still important. It's very important. I know that if you're like me, I know there's people who are 0 inbox people, which I just marvel at that you have inboxes. Marvel at that.
I just have folders. It's not really totally 0. I just moved into folders.
Move folders?
Yes.
I am my inbox.
And how many folders do you have?
Oh, wow.
47,000.
My zero inbox, I'm not that, but I do have, I use Google Gmail, G Suite, and so by primary, I am able to focus on those pieces. But my inbox is not 0 at all. But it's important. Email is still important. It is the one thing that you're going to get as much information as you can. You get emails from your phone. A good open rate you want to strive for is between 10 and 20%. You want to start to have conversations with people in this is where conversion really happens. So email is still very important. And if anybody's interested in the tool, if they have inboxes that are really scary and they want to like delete them, there's this great tool out there. I just little side note, a great tool out there called Maelstrom. It's MAILSTROM, Maelstrom. I think you might have to purchase it. It might be $5 a month, but honestly, you only need it for the first 30 days. It will help you clean out your inbox.
Oh, I need that.
Yeah, and you'll do it very quickly because how it's set up, you can have, like, I remember I got rid of 30,000 emails in 20 minutes.
Wow.
Does it work with G Suite too?
I believe it does, yes. Yeah. So take a look. I'm a digital hoarder. I am admitting this, all right? I'm a digital hoarder. I do not delete emails. I find it very hard to do that. I'll archive, but I just don't delete. And so this tool helps me. You can imagine, I've been doing this for a while. So I have bought storage just for my because
don't get there, because I won't tell you how many we get that we've got. Yeah, I'm gonna look this up.
I have a lot of emails, and I have quite a few inboxes, and I've just bought storage because I just can't seem to get it.
How many people go back and read yesterday's newspaper?
I know people don't. People don't, but I'm like, I might need that. You know, I have emails, 2000.
Well,
those emails 2005.
If you do delete it, you can put it in the garbage can. You can't go back within 30 days.
Within 30 days, yeah. What I've done, I have archived, like when I was at corporate, I have archived all my emails. You know, corporate, that's what I blame corporate, because we had to do that for legal purposes, keep all emails.
Yes.
And so it translated to my personal life as well. So, but email is still important. Obviously, the subject line works, and getting people, make sure you have a subject line that will trigger somebody like, I'm going to open this. People are starting to get savvy with subject lines. I know there's a bunch of bait and switch where you see the subject line and you go into like, oh my gosh, why did you get frustrated? You don't want to do that. You do want to give them some information, and you want to tell the story. If you're telling a story through a series of emails, keep that going, and people will recognize, like, oh yeah, she's been telling the story. Here's the next part. The email should always leave a little something extra. Either they're going to have to go to the website to get the final piece of it, or they're going to have to come back or be part of the series. Just leave them a little tease. But email is definitely still important to continue to that growth. The shorten the customer journey. I mentioned this before. We have this journey that they go through. They come to your website, they may purchase, or they find you in social media, or they looked at you on YouTube. Whatever you can to get them to purchase, convert, transact then and there. That's most important, because you want to get something from them initially. Usually it's an email. You want to just, and that way you can start the relationship. You can start the communications with them. Then you can have them come to your website, or email or text. But you want to shorten the journey. If you can't sell online or sell through platforms like Pinterest and Facebook and things like, do that. So make sure you have a cart. If you're selling something, have your cart go through Facebook, have your cart on your website, just to shorten that. That gets to the ADHD, because you will get distracted. And if you have to send them somewhere, they're going to go somewhere else. So wherever you are, that's where you want to have a transaction. Are you woke? I mentioned this, walk the talk. Beware of cancellation. In this light, in this age of what has been happening, especially here in the US, people are going to ask you that. They want to understand how authentic you are, and what are you doing in light of what's going on? Are you woke? If you see or hear the injustices, what is happening in your organization that lets people know that you are doing something? Not that you said you would, but you are. I mean, a good example, I was using this the other day, is Alex Ohanian, Serena Williams' husband. He stepped down from the board. He was on the board of, I can't remember what the organization was, and he stepped down from the board because he says, you know what, this board, there's no diversity on this board. I'm going to take myself down, and you must replace me with a Black man over there. And so he's walking the talk, and that's where I think some of the, I know the governor in California made it a mandate in terms of who should be on the board, whether it's female or people of color, forcing it from a government standpoint. But businesses should, kind of think about that too, for their businesses, and see if they are an ally with any type of social injustice or anything in political injustice that they don't agree with. You got to show it. These groups underneath us, God bless us. I have a couple of Gen Zs in my house, Generation Zs. Those are like the 20 and younger. That group is very non-compliant. They are demanding so much change, and they're ruthless with it. And if they don't get it, they'll move to find somebody else who will. And the younger millennials are the same way. It's the generation, it's how they grew up, but they want to see authenticity. They want to know that you are, that you matter. Your social, it's not just your political side that you side with, but also where are you in terms of some of the social issues that we're dealing with today. They want to see that and they want to know. If you're like, we need to do something about climate change, they'll just say that. What are you doing about climate change? Then show that. So how woke are you? And if you're not, you're going to be canceled. They'll cancel you.
I had to put my plug in for Earth Day, which is Thursday.
Yeah.
And I'm very involved in the environment. And do you realize that the United States has 37 million plastic that they do not recycle? Mm-hmm. And Finland, I'm going to write to my representative about this. They should introduce this type of bill with all the water bottles that people buy. This is in Finland. There's a deposit on everything. Mm-hmm. And in order to get the deposit back, you return the bottles.
Yeah.
And this may cut some things down. The other thing is we should take these plastic, our city, they're taking the plastic bottle caps, returning them to the city, and they're going to make park benches on them.
Oh, yeah.
They need to have 400 pounds of bottle caps to do this. So anyway, do something nice for the earth. And people shouldn't put their garbage out. I see people empty out their ashtray at the what is this? This is Mother Earth. She doesn't like that.
No, she doesn't. And she's fighting back.
She
right?
is.
So is not. Say it now.
No.
She's fighting back.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but I did.
It's quite right. Local. Make sure you think about local. If you ever use Google My Business account, make sure that it's pandemic friendly, post-pandemic friendly. Update times and things like that. Think about your local searches and optimization because people are looking for you online. So make sure those things are up to date and you are, people know that you're in the area for sure. I always say, paid ad tests. If you are running a business and maybe you haven't been successful with digital advertising, I always say do a paid ad test. You were talking about research. Target, do the research through paid ad. It's a cheap way. I hate to say this because I do love market research and market researchers, but you could do like a $5 ad, $5 a day ad with a survey, and you can go out there and you're going to get some responses back to answer your questions that you have.
What is that called again?
It's like if you want to take Facebook, do a Facebook ad.
Right.
Do it for $5 a day.
Yeah.
Target who your customer is.
Okay.
And the ad itself is a survey. You can ask questions and just like, hey, could you just give me some questions back? There are people out there who will respond.
Because digital engagement is huge.
It's huge.
You need the people to engage, not just post the comments or post the content, but you need people to engage in it. And that's what raises you up on SEO. That's what raises you up within Facebook so that your friends see it and their friends see it.
Exactly. And then paid ad, because Facebook advertising is simple to do and it's cheap. Like I said, you can do a $5 a day campaign. You're going to get some data back. You're going to get some results back. So you're going to be able to answer some questions from a research standpoint. The biggest one you're going to probably find is like, nobody's responded to me. They're like, well, your targeting is off. So that means that the people that you're seeing you're going after, one, they either aren't the right people to go after or your message is off. So there is ways that you can kind of help determine whether your messaging is right, your creative looks good, or your target. It's just through doing some very simple paid ad testing. I always say paid ad testing is good. The AI will even make it better.
I didn't make the incentive big enough as what you're talking about.
The incentive's not big enough. So people are responding. But if you look at some other ways to kind of get to answering your questions, paid ad is a great way of doing it. Be human, tell a story, be casual. Authenticity wins. I came from corporate. I came from advertising production. So Borders produced commercials and videos and things like that. Those kind of work well, right? You've watched some Super Bowl ads. Yeah, they're funny. They're hilarious. There's things that can work that well. But then there's also just telling the human story. I think those connect more with people. Being authentic in your own space. in social media, just showing that, you know what, all right, I didn't wake up that well this morning, and just being really authentic and casual. Is something that I think most businesses, that's a hard thing for business to do, because like, that doesn't look like our brand, you know, so you got to make sure you do it under your branding, you know, but just be really casual about it. I mean, State Farm's a good one. You know, I try to push as much social media, but, you know, I get slapped with compliance. No, that won't work. That won't work. With casual terms, you know, you have to just try to be authentic, tell the human story as much as you can. So people know that, you know, there's a human behind that image. You know, I know that you see all those gorgeousness of Instagram, but people really want to see the human behind it. And, literally, this has changed probably within the last 18 to 24 months, where your Instagram had to have this gorgeous palette, this gorgeous look of it. You go and look at your Instagram page, and you know, it had a viewpoint. And I remember working with clients on making sure that the messaging, it looked good when somebody would scroll through your whole profile. Now it's changed. You don't need to have that. It needs to look a little more rustic and organic, that you just, you know, because people want to see authenticity. So make sure you just kind of, and tell the story. Tell a story. Don't tell us about the product, but tell a story behind it. It's also critical. And now I say get sound advice, you know, hire help now. I think people in small businesses, by the time they think they want resources, they're too late. They're probably 6 to 12 months too late. They should think about it before they really need them, or they think they need them, because when they have them, they'll be surprised. And when I mean hire help, I tell small businesses, you know, contract out. Like, you know, for me, I work and support businesses with their marketing, and I'm just doing, you know, it could be a couple hours a week, just helping them with certain things. Don't necessarily be full-time. You don't have to worry about all that, but just contract out or get help for certain areas. So make sure that that happens as well. So again, that is pretty much everything. You know, I'll definitely make sure I share this strategy checklist for people. You can download this, and like I said, stick it to your wall. If you're interested in understanding more about marketing strategy. Lastly, I want to leave this with everybody. Please keep it simple. I went through a lot of things, but keep it simple. I know these kittens are cute, and you want to take them all home, but you just really need just 1 or 2. You know, you don't need everything, because there's so much you can do in terms of digital marketing. If you keep it simple, if you keep a shortened time frame and shortened tactics, learn from that, then perfect that, and then move that on to, you can really start to do a little bit of automation of that. But, you know, really kind of perfect that one area before you kind of move on to something else. But just keep it simple. You find most successful businesses, if they just do that one thing right and continue to do that one thing right, that way that's the best. Apple, they do their iPhones, they do their MacBooks, they do their iPads, and you know, they just try to keep it as simple as possible. And not try to do too much. Again, if you need help, I'm definitely here. I create plans for people. I also help them create their own plans, especially from a small business and that's on a budget. I know I have a program where we work together, but you're really creating it yourself. We do it over 5-6 weeks, where we just kind of create a realistic plan for your business. So feel free to just, look me up. You see my handles at the bottom, so you can definitely reach out to me from that perspective. And then I'll leave it here with, David S. Pumpkins, if anybody's interested or knows anything about Saturday Night Live. Any questions? Any questions? We have a few minutes left, so feel free if anybody has any questions.
Good information, very good. Yes, very good.
I'm glad that you got something out of it. In terms of my slides, I don't really give my slides out, but I do have lots of handouts that I have that are based off of the information off the slides. So I have that checklist. I also have a campaign worksheet. So if anybody's interested, it's just like a worksheet in terms of how to quickly create a campaign. So if you just reach out to me, again, if you reach out, if you go to my website, I have a contact button. And if you just click the contact button and say, hey, I was at the event and I would love to get more information, or I would love to find out about the campaign worksheet, as well as the 7-step checklist. I'm happy to kind of send that your way, for sure. And yeah, you can get it if you want to use the QR code. For those of you who are on your laptops at home, if you want to use that with your phone, you can probably get this. But again, it's fairly easy to download that. I guess that's pretty much it.
Standing ovation, everybody.